Alrighty, well, welcome to Romera Records Virtual Cast. Today we have on Bradley Kayson, and he also goes by Kayson as a musician. So how's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on, dude? Thanks for having me.
No doubt. So yeah, I just basically want to get into. First of all, I'll tell people how we met. That's usually how I start them off. I tell people how I got to know you, but
Okay.
it really started from Bluff. If everybody is paying attention to the previous podcast I had on Bluff, and I found Bluff from Twitter, and then Bluff was doing these Twitch streams where he was doing like these reviews, and he had on one of your songs, and I was like, this dude's good. So I looked you up on Instagram, and I saw in your bio that you had like, I think you were in California at the time, so it said like Bama to California or something like that. And I was
Yeah. Yeah.
like, dude's from Alabama too. So then I had to look you up, and I was like, oh snap, he's from Hayden. So for everybody, I'm from Aniana, Alabama, and Hayden's probably like what 20 to 25 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah. Which is just crazy, man. When you see somebody who's also making music and especially like hip hop music coming from like the community that we've grown up in. It's just not really like something that I guess resonates or is common.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So like what I guess we're just going to get into like your story, right? So like what
Okay.
do you feel like led you, and you know, we've got different parts of your life. If you've ever been in the military, which Kason was, like you've got different sections of your life that you have to tell people. There's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
pre-military, military, post-military. So like let's do well, let's just talk about the military, then we'll get into music because we can talk about music all day. So we'll
Okay.
finish with that. So like you graduate high school at Hayden, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and I graduated high school at Hayden, Alabama, in 2016, and I soon thereafter actually went to boot camp. So, 2016 of October, I went to Marine Corps boot camp at Paris Island, and so you go through 3 months of hell, and then graduated boot camp. Uh, January, I think, January of 23. Yeah, or not of 23, but January 23rd of 2017. So, uh, yeah, so that kind of kicked off my Marine Corps career. I was in the Marine Corps for a total of 5 years. I went on my first deployment in 2018, and that's actually where I met Bluff.
Mm,
I met him on deployment. We were on an LHD carrier on a Navy vessel on what they call a MU, which is a Marine Expeditionary Unit, which basically we were on a ship, on a Navy ship for 8 months. So it was an 8 month kick out. And, we flew on and off, doing different missions and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just kind of cool, man. We were in the same living quarters on boat. And it's kind of funny, man. I saw him, he was making music and on FL Studio. He was like messing around on some stuff. And when I first seen Bluff, dude, I was just like, at first glance, he was super quiet, dude. He was never like, he wasn't super talkative. Like he was like kept to himself. And I kind of, passed him on and off, and I didn't notice him, because he's so tall and lanky. I was like, just somebody that you notice. So when I saw him doing music, I'm like, what kind of fucking music is this guy making? Like I was, so it's sparked my interest because I've always been like a music enthusiast. I've always played, like I've been playing guitar since I was 5 years old, and I've branched out. And I was in a metal band when I was in high school for a while, and so and I've always loved rap, hip hop, and R&B music, dude. I just love it, So music is like deeply embedded in me. So when I see this, I'm like super curious. And I'm like, this super quiet guy, like he's making music. And so I have to ask him. So, I tap him on the shoulder, and I remember he had some, he had on, what do they call it, man? Audio Technica
uh,
headphones on. And so he pulls it back, and he's just like, looks at me. I'm like, what kind of music are you making? Now that I know what I know now, the look that he gave me is the look of like what you would give anybody who is going to be immediately not intrigued into your music. He just looked at me, was just like, oh yeah, man, this is what I'm doing. Like he was like super like uninterested. I was like, dude, I was like, you care if I listen to it? And I sat down, he showed me a few of the songs, and dude, I was just like blown away because you know how quiet and stuff he was. I'm hearing him just go off, and like he's actually super good. And I was just like blown away. I'm like, dang, dude. I'm like, dude, let's do something. You know, I was like, I've always wanted to make music, but I've just never had anybody to show me.
Yeah.
Um, so he had like this bootleg version of FL Studio, and I was able to actually download it on my computer. And so I started just making a bunch of beats and stuff, and they were awful, you know, very terrible. And you know, we actually made our EP After Hours. We made that on the boat,
Oh
like
wow.
completely on the boat. Yeah. So it all started from like that point. And from then on out, like we'd always been like kind of glued to the hip, you know, making music and stuff. And, you know, even now, like even though I'm not in New York and I'm still in Alabama, like I still send him my stuff and he mixes everything for me and stuff. So we still work together very closely.
So when you're on this boat and you've obviously like for most people, I remember just being in the Air Force and I was stationed in North Dakota, and
Right.
I remember hanging out with some of like there was a guy that I met up there. It was in the Air Force with me. He had friends from South Dakota, so we drive down. We're hanging out with people like his friends, and like, so can y'all like leave the base? Can y'all like and so we had to explain to them like it's just like a regular job. Like you wake up, you go to work, you come home. Well,
Right, right.
so how was it like on the ship? Like you know, it's for everybody to understand. Like you know, you're telling people like you met a guy making beats in FL Studio. Probably most people are thinking like, oh, you're in the Marines, like you're just doing push-ups all day.
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, that's actually a good point, man. Because actually, when I joined the Marine Corps, I thought that every day, I thought like once you finish boot camp, I thought that you were going to live in a squad bay like that at close quarters. Like I just didn't like I didn't. I'm the first person in my family since like my great grandfather to be in, you know, the military. So it was just I didn't have a lot of knowledge on it, and like when you're joining, I guess you could ask these questions, you know, but it's kind of hard. And, you know, like if anybody's ever talked to a recruiter, and obviously you have, you know, that like they're more interested in just getting you in and they want to know like what kind of job you want to do. So like that's your main effort to figure out what you want to do, you know, especially straight out of high school and you don't know what you want to do. So, but anyhow, yeah, there was, it is a lot of misconception. And I remember talking to my dad and I was on the phone with him. I was just like, yeah, I was just like, I'm actually getting off the phone. I've got cause there's a pay phone on boat.
Mm.
You actually have to put hours on like a card that they give you. You
Oh,
actually put money on it and you type in your code on the phone. Um, and you can actually call home and stuff, but you're only allowed to do so in certain hours, depending on where you're at, because of, you know, just cybersecurity reasons. And, you know, they don't want to get, you know, they say loose lips sink ships, you know, so if they're
mm.
going through some stuff or something happens, you know, that's significant, they cut off all communications. But it's funny. I was talking to my dad. I was just like, yeah, I'm actually going back to my rack, and you know, we call you know the rack is your bed.
Mm.
So I would, you know, I'm in my head, you know, I'm always you know thinking Marine Corps terms and stuff like that. And you're around Marines, you're on deployment. I'm like, yeah, I'm actually about to go hit the rack. I'm gonna go back to my rack, and he thought that I said Iraq. So when I called him the next day, I called him the next day. He was like, "Damn, son, I thought you were in Iraq." I was just like, "No, no, no." So yeah, so that was funny. But the day to day boat life was pretty. It's different for everybody. Because myself, like, I didn't have a job to do on the boat. Um, so I mean, we would meet up within our section. We would get accountability, and then you would kind of get go do whatever. You know, you'd eat chow, go hit the gym, and just kind of just do whatever. I mean, you'd obviously have to do like you know, layouts of gear and stuff like that, and do your gear counts and make sure everything's there. And you know that was kind of on a daily, but a lot of the time, man, there's a lot of sitting around because those you don't want to get in the way of the people who are actually working. Like for instance, the guys who are doing like airframers and stuff like that are working on like these 53s and just aircrafts. You don't want to get in these guys' way because they're constantly running ops on and off the boat. They're flying on and off boat all the time. And those guys, I mean, they work like dogs on the boat. But me and Bluff, no, we didn't do nothing. Not on the boat. I mean, there were times that we were working, but I mean, more oftentimes than not, I mean, we would find ourselves like in our living quarters, and there's like a common room. That's where I saw him making beats and stuff. And we would just kind of chill and those converse, and everybody would kind of hang out on and off. So,
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like
mm.
the concept of what we have to do in the military is it will blow your mind. Number one, if you're telling a civilian like what you're doing all day, and then number two, like if that's that's now your job, right? Like you went from being a civilian, you graduate high school, and then you join the military, and then you expect like you're like, all right, now I am going to be Chris Kyle. I'm sniping down, but it's like, oh no, you just have to sit here and count some stuff all day. It's like
Yeah, yeah, I
that's
love
all you
it. And people don't realize that, man. Like, I was shell shocked, man, because when they gave us like what they call liberty is basically when you're done for the day, like you're basically like on a regular job, you're clocked out. That was our liberty, our free time. So they would, it was just I was like baffled when I hit like my schoolhouse where I was learning my actual job, and they actually gave us that liberty like to stay on base, that I could go and I could work out at the gym, and I could go to like the on base store, the exchange is what so it was just crazy to me, because I thought that like I was always going to be in my camis, and boots and utes and stuff, and just I literally thought that, so it was just, I thought it was so cool. As little free time as they give you in that time, I remember feeling very thankful at the time because my expectation was, I guess, so low. And yeah, so I remember just being like, wow, dude, this is badass.
Yeah. And I'll definitely say like being in the military made me really understand that phrase like freedom ain't free, because it's like, oh, like we really have to go through some times where like we have no freedom. Like the people who are keeping the freedom get no freedom. And then
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they'll lock up, they'll lock down the base by like unit discretion. I mean, like they've locked down the base before, but like they typically don't do that. But like if somebody in your unit gets like a DUI or something like that, or something happens, they'll secure everybody's with liberty, and you can't leave your barracks for however long they want to do it, because that's just how much control that they can actually have. Now, more often cases than not, they typically don't do that, but unit punishment is, nothing new to the military, so it's just like you always like want to hold each other accountable. That's like huge, always like checking on you say I'm my brother's keeper, or my sister's keeper. It's really that way. And oftentimes I feel like it's a selfish reason because you don't want to get in trouble too. So you're just like, hey man, like you don't need to be doing that. I mean, obviously you care about them, but you're like, don't screw this up for me too.
yeah, I mean that's a big thing. And you learn that camaraderie, you learn that like relationship, that brotherly or sisterly relationship when you're in the military, because it's like, you're really depending on somebody. Like this one time, I think we're in like probably week 3 or something like that of a boot camp, and our one of our tech sergeants, she was one of the team chiefs over us. She was in the medical field, and she was telling us, she's like, one day one of y'all are I'm gonna have to depend on y'all to look after my back. And she's like, that's why I'm helping you and trying to train you. And we were like, oh my god,
Yeah,
kind of hit us like, oh snap, like she's
yeah,
our trainer now, but one day we might be partners, we might be working with each other. So it really
yeah.
kind of puts that stuff in perspective.
And the Air Force, it's a pretty big community. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Like there's so many, you can come in contact with so many different people. Like it's not very isolated. Well, at least I can say that for me because I was on the flight line. So
Right. Okay.
I did aircraft armament systems. So I dealt with like all the weapon systems of the B-52. And
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so like we're
The
all,
bomber. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was a big bomber.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm a big aircraft guy because I was in the low altitude air defense. So we did a lot of VACR, visual aircraft recognition. So we always were like up to date on like what aircrafts were what. Most of U.S. aircrafts, and when you go overseas and stuff like that, they give you a list of like, hey, we're going to go through these straight transits, and you might see Chinese aircraft, and like these are things that we they're you're back brief on those sort of things. But yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just saying that I'm in the community too, so I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, like, I'm always working with either team chiefs who are over the aircraft, or we're working with people who do like radar and navigation. So, like, there's all these different people who, like, sometimes we have to wait on them. Like, hey, we're doing these checks. Y'all have to wait. So, we're like, all right. So, we have to wait on them. And then there's sometimes
Like ATC guys, like the air traffic control guys, or
no, I didn't really have to come in contact with those people because they're usually air traffic control is usually like in a tower or something like that. So
right.
um, it was basically just people who were also had to do maintenance on the aircraft. And so
Okay.
a lot of times it was either we were waiting on them or we had to work in the aircraft at the same time that they were working. So there's a lot of times where you just literally are meeting new people and learning like, hey, even though you have no idea what this who this person is or like what they're doing, like you still have to be able to work with them and be able to trust them and rely on them that they're not going to do something stupid that might get you hurt or something like that. So that whole like camaraderie thing, like really it really clicks after a while, and the community as we were talking about, like is just it was kind of like on the flight line it was like weapons versus everybody else, and then as a base wise it was like maintenance versus everybody else, like people who are
Right.
working in the office and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like we had separate batteries. Like we had alpha battery and bravo battery. And I was a part of both. But when you're a part of one or the other, it's always alpha against bravo and who can do the best. Now, from a unit standpoint, it's everybody's together, but it keeps that I guess the drive going, some sort of competition to like always do better. Um, Especially in operations, when you go and do like field ops and stuff like that, and you want to talk about like who's performing the best, that's where you see who's the best leaders and stuff, So there's always competition, like inside competition.
Okay, so before we started this,
Mm.
you made a comment about the thing behind you. So what was
Oh
this
yeah.
on that?
Yeah, so it's not a real missile, it's just a launch tube. So um, that's basically a FIM 92 Stinger missile launch tube. Um, Now it has been fired before, so it's a real launch tube. There are, but like I guess like classified pieces of the launch tube, like the sights and stuff like that. And the grip stock, I don't have that. A grip stock is separate from the actual launch tube. So I don't have that. I just have the tube itself, no sight, no nothing. So all on class stuff, which is cool. So basically, when you transition out of the Marine Corps, I was given that
Mm,
just as like a go away gift. They're like, hey, this is something that you'll probably have forever. You can hang up in your house when you get a house, or like whatever. So that's just like a going away present that they given me. But that is like our main weapon that we use in LAD, low altitude air defense. I mean, it's a heat seeking missile that takes out enemy aircraft in a nutshell.
okay, yeah, I didn't get something as cool as that. As I said,
It sounds a lot cooler than it is. I've only shot it twice.
mm,
And a lot of people, because they're so expensive, they're actually, because I'm still talking to some of the guys, they're actually moving to a different, more cost effective missile. They've been talking with some guys in Raytheon and stuff like that. And these guys, they're developing a new weapon system, is all. So
okay.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so as I said, I did aircraft armament systems, so we loaded bombs and everything. And the things that they would like let us keep is literally just like these pins that go inside the bombs. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you before the aircraft takes off, and after you get done loading the bomb, you're supposed to take out the pin, and the pin has like a flag, red flag attached to it that says "removed before flight." So
Mm,
they would let us keep those. And that's about it.
okay.
So
Yeah, there's like only so much. They're like, oh, we can give you a bomb.
yeah. So yeah,
It's kind of cool though. I mean, like technically, like I had to get something written out. They had to write me a legitimate like piece of like they had to type out a piece of paper like saying that I was certified to have it because if you get pulled over or something on base or like if you have in your car, during transit, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and you have this in your vehicle, you can imagine like a police officer pulling you over and they're like, oh my God, they're like freaking out. They're like, because you got like some crazy like weapon system. So yeah, so I had to get that and everything before I traveled like back home and stuff. So but it's cool, man. I thought it was a really really cool thing, and actually I almost didn't even get one. I actually like had to push to get one because everybody was in and out of deployments and stuff, and like everybody was kind of gone. I had to like just pull like teeth to kind of get one, but I got it.
The funny story I was going to tell you was about what happened in Minot. There was so we had heard that apparently somebody had stolen a bunch of stuff. It was like from special security forces, and
Okay.
so we're like slowly hearing about what happened, and none of it's making sense. So, and to this day, I still don't even know the real story. But from what I remember, somebody had stole an M240 and
Mhm.
a bunch of grenades. and we and so like when this story is coming out, we're like, no.
Lock it down.
Yeah, we're like, no way. So and it was around the time that in Minot they would have like the state fair there. So it was
Okay.
around the time the state fair was going on.
Oh,
So
so they were thinking something crazy was happening.
yeah, there
It
was
was like, well, this
rumors.
doesn't seem like coincidental. So it sounds like something that was planned.
Yeah, it was
I
rumored
got
that
you.
somebody was going to like try to attack a bunch of people at the fair and all this stuff. But uh, and then again, rumor has it that somebody, the guy and his girl had like planned together to like take this stuff, and then something about like he had did something to her, which I don't remember if it was somebody's calling me.
Hello.
He had did something to her, and apparently she ratted him out and
Oh, so
told
it was true then.
that's what I remember like somebody saying. I can't remember if that was the whole story. It was like they planned it together and then he did something to her and then she had like ratted him out or something like that. But
Dang.
OSI did the whole investigation and then that's what I remember it came out of it.
It's man, it's crazy. And I said earlier to you about the Air Force being a bigger community, and you were talking about how the person that was in charge of you at the time in boot camp was telling you that one day I might have to depend on you. Um, and I brought up it being a bigger community. The same thing was told to me, and when I was in boot camp, but the Marine Corps is a much, much smaller community. And they always stress that to you. And at the time, like I said, I had little knowledge of like the size and the difference. And I knew like, the Marine Corps boot camp was the hardest boot camp to go through. So it was just like, I was just happy to be there. And as my Marine Corps career was going on, I started seeing people, even people that I graduated high school with, and I didn't even know that they were in the Marine Corps. And I just was like on a field up one time, and I was like, looked over, I'm like, no way, is that so and so? And it was just like you would always see people, and that's when I started realizing, I'm like, wow, dude, this, the Marine Corps really, it's big, but it's also super small. So your reputation actually goes a lot further, because when you work side by side with some other units and stuff like that, I mean, it's word of mouth, you know. So it was like paramount that you're always like on your P's and Q's and you're always performing at top notch. And like I would say that like the pressure was always on. And for me, like I'm high strung and like I'm a huge procrastinator, especially now. So like I love like the high intensity stuff because I'm like it drove me to like be better. You know what I mean? So I love that stuff. And I got out and I wouldn't change it. But yeah, man, I love it, and I'll always love it.
Yeah,
Always,
and
man.
that's the caveat to getting out is like, it's such great memories. I mean, you're happy that you did get out, but then it's like, yeah, I mean, you've got all these great stories that you can tell people and do stuff like that. So that's the best part, about it once you're out. So I did want to get into like your music stuff now. So
Yeah,
um,
sure.
recently you were on Instagram Live and you were just playing your guitar, and I had no idea you play guitar, and that was really, like, honestly, that was really special to be able to watch you do that and stuff like that, because you're really good at it. So like,
Thanks, man.
how long you been doing it, and what made you do guitar, and do you play other stuff?
So I've been playing. I've been playing since I was 5 years old. And I started playing acoustic guitar when I was around five. My dad had always played, and I actually have his guitar when I was younger. I have his electric guitar. That I grew up kind of playing on and watching him play on.
Mm.
Um, but he and he's never been crazy good. He just liked to play, and watching him play and listening to like I grew up listening to like Metallica and like Hank Williams Jr. and like um, you know Poison, like all hair bands, Scorpions. Like I grew up listening to just like nice like good 80s hair bands and like metal bands. So like and I always loved like the guitar, like listening to it. It's just like a main thing. And I think what gravitated me towards that was like the best era, one of the best era for like classic rock music, or in rock music in general. But it was also a good era for guitar solos. So like growing up and listening to all these guitar solos, I'm like, man, I was like, this is badass. And then I just eventually just started just playing around and just I taught myself by ear my entire life. I actually didn't have like internet until I was like, I think 17 or 18 years old, something like that. So I played by ear for a long time, just
Mm.
hearing something on the radio and just like playing it over and over again and finding the notes until I figured out what, tablatures were. And I was able to read tabs and look stuff up on YouTube and stuff. So, which made it way easier.
Did you so being in the military, you kind of for a lot of people you learn what free time really is, all right? So
Mhm.
first of all, you were talking about being on the ship and stuff and watching Bluff make beats. Were you able to bring something like that on the ship, or did you just like when you were at home, did you play like how was your playing like in the military?
Well, it's funny, man. Like, I actually acquired a few acoustic guitars from people who just didn't want them or
Mm.
just didn't want to carry them. Some people who would buy them, like, you see a lot of these, like, younger Marines and just, I guess, younger servicemen and women in general, they get their own money for the first time. And they're like, oh, I want to get into guitar, or oh, I want to do this, or I want to get into this. And they don't have the first paychecks. And so they start spending money on stuff and then they realize they don't want it. So, me being somebody who plays guitar, like, I'm like, yeah, dude, like, I'll take it. Or I'll go and I'll play theirs. And they're like, oh, man, like, I don't want this. And it happened to me like twice. I actually have one of AJ's or Bluff's guitar. I have one of his that he had just left. And I'll never give it back to him. I'll always keep it because, you know, I'm a thief. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. No, he left it, dude, and I just never wanted to travel with it to like bring it to him. I never got around to like traveling to New York again, and so I've just had it ever since, man. It's been years. So that's just I've just acquired them and played on and off. And actually, on the boat, there was like a few people who actually brought guitars and played on and off, and they're pretty delicate, instruments.
Mm.
And so some people will let you play, and then some people were just like, oh man, like I'm just kind of playing, like so. I played when I could.
Mm. So, where were y'all both of y'all stationed? Like, so do you come from different bases to be on the ship, and then when you leave and you go back, like when you're on land, like were y'all close to each other?
Um, yeah, so it's actually funny, but so I was stationed on Camp Pendleton, California, in San Diego, and he was stationed, I want to say in Miramar,
Hmm.
which is still in San Diego, but it's about 45 minutes away, give or take.
Okay.
Um, so he wasn't too far away from me, and he ended up actually after deployment, he got stuck in the barracks, actually the same barracks as me. So
Mm.
he was in the same barracks as me for like I want to say like a month, maybe a little more. So we hung out and did stuff, um, while he was there. But he actually got out soon after that deployment. He was pretty dead set on like getting out. He had a little bit more time in than I did. Um, so yeah, once that had happened, actually, I went on leave with him, and I went to New York and went to the studio and like made music with him. Actually, took two trips out there. Uh, One when we came back from deployment, I went with him to New York and made music, stayed with him and his family, and they're awesome. I came back, and then I think right before he got out, he took another trip, and I took leave again with him and went to go see his family again and hang out and make music and stuff in the studio. So we've been out there twice, and I'm going in July, which you're going too. So it's going to be awesome. I get to finally meet you. I mean, we've never actually met face to face. We've been within the same vicinity of each other for a long time, but never actually made the connection. So
Yeah. So when you go to New York for the first time, you're hanging out with him and everything. Does it seem like that was just like an easy like transition to like be with somebody in their backyard and like and making music with them, or did you feel like it was a different vibe? Like, how was it?
Um, so to me, like, I mean, I felt comfortable. I'll say this, man. When I first started music, and you can hear it in my earlier stuff, like, I wasn't really sure on like what my lane was going to be. I would hear something and like, oh, this sounds good, and then I would try to kind of get on it, and make my own, version of what I thought was going to sound good. And some of it came out pretty decent, but it just wasn't necessarily my sound. And it was over time I struggled with that, finding what my sound was going to be. So I had to differentiate, like, okay, like just because this sounds cool doesn't mean it's for me.
Mm,
This might sound cool, and like I might like it because I have a wide variety of things that I like in music. But just because I like it doesn't mean that it needs to be a piece of me on there. So with that being said, when I went to New York and I actually went to the studio with them, like I was like really nervous. They're bringing in people who were like, really good, and who were like heavily embedded in like the hip hop community and stuff. And like I'm like, man, and like they were all nice guys, and they all welcomed me in, and they were like super cool. And like I'm excited actually for you to meet them, and I'm excited to see him again. But at the time, I remember thinking, I'm like, wow, dude, like these guys are gonna think that I'm like a fucking poser, or something, dude. Like so, like I was like super, like I'm like, all right, man, I got to get in here and lay something hard. I got to put something, So like, um, yeah, and that's why I struggled with that for a little while, and that was about as far as my uncomfortability went. It was just right in that area. But other than that, like being with him and his family, like they were super cool, and like everybody there was like super nice. I didn't really meet anybody there that was affiliated with them that like made me feel like I didn't belong. You know what I mean? It was always like very welcome. So and that's why I want to go back anyway. Um, it's just it's fun, man. I really enjoy it, and I think that if I could go back, like I wouldn't do it any different. Um, but maybe I would change like one or two things.
and that's something I'd like to just pretty much say for everybody listening. Like, if you do music, the funny thing about it, like the thing, which this could be for really anything in life, like sometimes what you think is your weakness is probably your strength around new people. And so
Absolutely.
what you thought like might be your weakness just because you're different could be your strength. Like I know people who have like very strong accents, like very thick accents, and like that is your strength because very few people sound like you. So I got a friend 416 DD who's from New Orleans, and you can tell like when you listen
Yeah,
to him talk, you know.
it's a very specific accent. Yeah.
Yeah. So, he's not like this at all. Like he definitely owns like the fact that he's from New Orleans, but like if he was kind of shy about that, he might think like, let me try to sound like everybody else that's on this track or whatever. But like, it's like, no, dude, like that's what makes you special is your voice.
And see, I didn't realize that for the longest time because like I knew that I could sing and stuff, but I always felt like, oh man, like I don't want to be this like I don't want to be just like this super like pop guy because like I mean I can sing, but I'm like I don't feel like me personally, I'm like I can't really like sing like this guy or like that guy, and so like it always deterred me, to experiment, I guess. And the pressure was on, like I said, I'm in the studio with other people and they want me to do songs with them, and I'm like, oh man, like what do I do? And like so I was always worried that it wouldn't meet like an expectation, but in reality, it's just like they want to be on a song with me because of like what I can bring that's specific to me, not because I can sound like somebody else. So like, yeah, you're exactly right. Like, and that was just something that I struggled with for a long time, and some people do, and like I feel like it took me a longer time than I would like to find like what lane or what groove like I wanted to be in, but ultimately, and that's what I meant by like, if I could go back, like I wouldn't change, hardly anything because, me going through those experiences and like kind of like thinking to myself, like, man, like, why did I do that? Or like, why did I say or like do this way? Or, that just helped me learn and like get to where I'm at now and, and feel comfortable with making music about like, that feels natural to me.
Yeah. And obviously, like, nobody's perfect, right? Like, in music or anything. But, like, do you feel as if you're at the point to where you've kind of figured out who Kason is, or are you still polishing what you do? Like, I mean, I think we're all working on, our artistry, but, like, do you feel like you're still trying to get to where you want to be, or are you just like, what do you feel like you're at?
Well, I actually think that I think that I've kind of got things figured out. I know that, um, like I said, for the longest time, I was just trying to make stuff that sounded like maybe somebody else, and like it's just not, it's not me, and I could feel it, and I'm like, you know what, like I just started experimenting with different things, and there's like I said, there's a lot of songs that I've made that I just never released because like they just sounded bad, and it was those songs that I'd made, I remember I was making them to sound like a specific song that I liked at the time, or something that it was very specific. Whereas now I'm at the point where I'm like, I like so many different genres of music, and I can incorporate different styles from those genres and things that inspire me to be me and to put that out
Hmm.
instead of trying to make it sound like this person on this song and do this way, because there's no specific way to do it because it's just me expressing something, um, about me. Is it typically, I mean, that's what it is, and it's kind of a selfish thing, if you think about it, making music, it's kind of a selfish thing because it's all about you, and even when you market it, you send it out there to other people, it's all about you because it is so, um that was something I had to hurl over because I'm just not that way, and so now, like I said, I'm at the point where I know where I want to be at, and I'm comfortable. Like if somebody says like, "Oh, hey, I want you to do this," I'm very comfortable now with just saying like, "I don't think this is for me." I'm okay with turning it down and like, I can't do anything on this, because I like it, but it's not something that I'm going to do something good on. Like, and I want it to sound good, and I'd rather say that to somebody than do a verse or like try to do a hook on something and then it come out just not to the expectations of me or the other person involved, so, and that's another thing, just being able to say no, and there's a lot of power in saying no. um and I've had to do that a few times with people who are like make beats and stuff, and they're like, hey man, like I want you to do these beats, and I'm like, they're good, but I'm like, I don't know if a heavy boom bap beat's gonna be something that I'm gonna sound good on. You know what I mean? Like it's just, and I got to be honest. As much as I want to work with that person or something, like I've got to be, forward about it because not only would I not do them justice, but I wouldn't do myself any justice. So,
So something that I never really thought about till thinking about you and Bluff is like, both of y'all are borderline hook gods. Uh, do you like so if y'all two are on a song, or if you know anybody else who is great at hooks and stuff like that, how do you decide the verses and hooks? Like how do you decide like how you divvy up, the parts of the music?
That's a good question. So I mean, I like doing hooks a lot. I feel like I'm, especially if somebody does like a verse on the song. A lot of times, what happened between me and Bluff is that, and this is why we work so well together, man. Is it because like there's no pride in either one of us. So I mean, and there is in the music, right? We're very proud of the music, but as far as like, there's no like pride in being like, oh, I'm too prideful to like let you do the hook or like or let you do this verse or something. We always want to set each other up with what's going to be best for the other person. Like I wouldn't want to put him in a situation where he would do something that doesn't really highlight him. And he wouldn't do that with me either. And this times, like I said, like he sent me stuff and I'm like, oh man, like I don't know, like I like it, but it seems like a you thing and not a me thing, you know?
Yeah,
So the decisions is really just like it just comes up naturally. There's no like debate, there's no nothing. It's literally just like he goes, hey man, like can you do a hook on this? Or like, hey man, would you throw a verse on this because he's already got a hook? Or maybe he's got a hook already planned out and he's just like, oh, I can't sing it, but it would sound good if you did these melodies like this way. And that's why we work so well together that way because we like feed off of each other. You know, I'm like, oh man, like, oh, like if he's making a beat or something, I'm like, oh man, this would sound cool if you could put in like something like this, you know, and like,
hmm.
and we'll just, it's just, it's great, man. And like, it's hard to find people that you work well, especially like making music. It's hard to find people that you work that well with, and I'm glad that I've got him. And I know that's why he's doing so well and he's so successful with like all the artists that he brings in because he has those attributes and he's really good at like working Pro Tools and stuff. I mean, it's just crazy. And I've told him this before. If it wasn't for Bluff, like I wouldn't even be an artist. Yeah, I really wouldn't. Because like I said, he mixes all my songs and stuff for me. And he always has, and he's helped me fill in gaps where like I didn't see something a certain way, and he's just like, "Oh, dude, like it sounds like empty right here. Like you need to put something like this in here." So like he kind of comes from like he's like a producer, engineer, artist. Like he's like a Swiss Army knife, dude. You know what I mean? Like he's got so many different tools like that he can use to help you out. So and plus he's a good dude, so we've always been like close friends, and that's even a plus. I don't there's no It's not just like a like a business transaction. It's more of like just like boys hanging out, like making music. So it also takes that off, so it adds more to the creative like expression.
Yeah, I mean that's something that's super valuable to have in somebody who's like, I would say you probably haven't really thought about it, but like, he's your teammate, he's on your team of the Kason Corporation, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
have to have those kind of people on your team to like understand where you can go, like what is the limit of where your career can take you. And until you find those kind of people, you kind of get stuck. You kind of get in this like rut where you're like, what am I even doing? Like why am I making this music? But when you find those people who are on your team that like help elevate you and help make you better, you're like, oh man, we could do this, we can do that. It just
Yeah,
really
right, dude. That's and there's a lot of gatekeeping, man, in the music industry, and that's why a lot of people who there's probably a shit ton of people out there that are like crazy good at making music and can really do well, who just haven't found the right people to like get them to that level, because there's no way that you can do this on your own. Like it's impossible. And I'm sure there's some artists out there that figure it out and they can like work by themselves and they do it very well, but it even they don't do it by themselves. They still need other people, to help them out. And it just it really elevates you in a positive way to have somebody in your corner who's not just looking to like money gouge you for things. I've had so many people reach out to me, and like people that I wouldn't mind working for or working with. And I've just been like, man, I can't do it. Like sorry, dude. Like I've had people reach out to me and they're like, "Oh yeah, man, like I want to work with you." Like I had a dude on the who played for he still plays for him. He plays in baseball for the Cardinals, and he reaches out to me. He's got a huge following and stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I make music." And I was like, "Yeah, cool, dude. Let's do something." And he goes, "All right, man. Like I do like $1,200 for a verse or something like that." And I was like, and like I listened to some of his music, and I'm like, I mean, like, and no hate or anything. It just wasn't something that I wanted to spend $1,200 on. You know what I mean? And like in my mind, I was thinking, like, dude, you should be paying me $1,200. You know, but I'm like, I, but like I didn't say that. I was just like, it's cool, dude. Like I was like, I understand, like it would be more or less paying for the exposure because of the following that he has, and that was more of something that I was interested in more or less than actually like getting the verse from him. And I've just kind of gotten to the point with myself where I've just thought like, okay, well, I would rather make good music with somebody who really doesn't have much of a following than pay somebody to like ruin a song or like not do justice to a song and just get a bunch of exposure. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and a lot of people I think will slowly understand that over time. It's like the exposure thing is great for a very short period of time, but like once that star starts dying off, it's like
Oh, they're on to the next thing.
yeah, it was like what was that about?
Yeah, we were like, oh man, like somebody keeps playing this song and they go listen to it and they're like, yeah, sure, you got a stream out of it, but it's just like, is it going to be consistent? Probably not. So, and I've just thought about that for a while. I'm like, I'd just rather make good music with somebody. People like good music, and good music from bad music.
Yes.
So,
The ability for people to, I guess, understand what's going on uh, with what you and Bluff are really doing. Do you feel like that has helped your career as far as like the association with having like somebody else with you instead of just like it's just me, case on.
yeah, absolutely, man. Like he's plugged me in with so many people that his brother, and I can't go without saying his brother, producer Public, like him and his brother are some of the most talented people that I know. And they both have just plugged me in with so many like talented artists and like genuine artists, man. Like not just somebody who's just like, hey, what's up, man? And like we do a song and then it's over with, but like people who, when you post something on Instagram and they immediately comment or they'll share it on their story or they'll reach out to you and be like, hey man, like I listened to your song that you just put out and it's really good. Like those are the type of people that I like they introduced me to and that I have close relationships with. And like some of those people I never even met, but they're just from word of mouth, from Bluff and his brother. And it's just, I mean, it's just kind of kept the relationship there. Like for instance, like you and I, like I met you through Bluff, and like I feel like we're close friends.
Yeah.
And it's just weird how that works, how like you can never meet somebody, but you guys are we're kind of like on the same path, and through helping each other out and like without the ego, without like trying to get money from each other, but just genuinely helping each other out, like and like a friendship kind of just starts to build. You're like, wow, like this is nice, because especially here, it's hard to find people that actually want to help you reach a certain goal, without charging you a bunch of money.
So on the topic of just like your career as a whole, so how do you feel about your current catalog and then like what you have coming out and like what you're currently pushing for your music? Like, do you feel like you're really proud of what you've got out there? You're like, man, like I need to hurry up and push out this other stuff. Like, how do you feel about it right now?
I feel I feel indifferent, because on one side, I know that the stuff that I put out before, a lot of it, it doesn't really resonate, and I don't think is like just like that great. But that's like the negative side, right? And then the positive side is that over time you can see the growth of like, oh, okay, like wow, like what's it like, you know, I might put some good stuff out really soon, and I've made some really good music here recently, and I'm excited for that, and it's astronomically better than what I was putting out before, and I know that, but nobody else knows that, So once it's out, and eventually they'll be able to look at the catalog and they'll be able to see like, oh, okay, like, wow, this doesn't really sound, as good of a flow as like now, and like how smooth this sounds, or how natural the newer stuff sounds. And I think it's important just to see a growth of an artist. Nobody and very few people can put out music and it takes off and they're just super great. You know what I mean? And you look at people like Post Malone and like Jack Harlow and like all these things like, oh, before they were famous, and it shows like all these old songs that they had put out, and you're like, what the hell is this? It's just like, I think it's important, because it lets you see like, oh, okay, like through trial and error, you can find a lane and find what works for you, and it kind of takes a layer off and makes it more personable, like, oh, you are a person too. You're not just like somebody who just puts out music and you're an artist, you're a person.
Yeah, and it can be difficult to, be happy with what you've done, just because in this day and age, like we're so used to seeing so many people who aren't that great, but yet they're like super popular, and so we're like, I'm trash. Like I am the worst. If that person's big, how in the world am I doing what I should quit? But like at the end of the day, it's just like that person just has a platform. Like somebody gave that person a platform, and that's why they're up here. But until you get on that platform, it's things just aren't equivalent right now. They
Right, and they got people that are working with them too, and so it's just like, oh man, this guy, they're taking off, but they've got people who are like, oh man, you need to post this, or they're helping them get the right photos to post or the right videos to post, and they're shooting videos for them for the music videos and stuff, and they're giving them money to do these things, and it's like, you don't realize when you're doing it independently. A lot of people don't realize this. You're out. I mean, thousands and thousands of dollars, and then you look at your streams and you're like, oh man, I got like 180 streams on this song. And you're like, what the hell? What did I waste all this money on? So it can be really irritating for sure. And it is. And it's hard, um, to get people to listen to what you're doing and like push stuff because, guess what we were talking about on my IG Live, about advertising. It gets very monotonous, hearing somebody going like, hey, check this out, hey, check this out, hey, look at this, hey, look at this. And that, like, I mean, regardless of like what you're posting, your end goal is just to drive them to go look at your music or just check it out or listen to it just for a second, because all it takes is like one good, like, somebody to scroll through and be like, oh, that does sound pretty good, like, and they'll go check you out. But it's just hard to get that through to people. We live in a time as well, where people are just, they scroll, they scroll, they scroll, and then they see something like, oh, that's cool. And then they don't like it, they don't comment, they don't share it, they don't even go check it out. And they're just like, oh yeah, that was cool. We'll just see if it lasts, and they'll just scroll past it. And it's like, man, like, it's important for myself included, like if somebody that I know is posting music, it's important for me to like share that to other people, or like, hey man, check this person out or whatever. And it's equally as important for me to do that for them as it is for them to do that for me. Even from the consumers, like they need to be sharing that, like people who are close to you or whatever, they need to be sharing your music and stuff, because you're never going to make it out or get people to listen to you if the people who aren't even listening to you.
Yeah, it's very important for the people who already are seeing you kind of climb that ladder, for them to help you, get up to where you're at, because if they don't, then it's just going to be such a dwindling factor in the future for how you're going to continue to escalate, and how you can get into like certain venues to do shows, or get these certain opportunities where people are looking at you, because that's really what people are looking at, is numbers. Like they want to see how many views you're getting, how many streams you're getting. And if you can get somebody to just keep on looking at that stuff, then you'll be fine.
Absolutely. I think that's why, like, I try to stay as embedded as I can with the people, and the artists that I know in New York, because there's more of a following for the music than there is here, and it's harder, when you grow up in a town like where I grew up, and like mostly people listen to is like country music and rock music, and there's nothing wrong with that. I did too. Um, it's hard to get them to want to listen to it, or even like that kind of music to even want to show somebody. If they don't like it, if they don't even like the kind of music, they're not gonna like. It's not gonna pop into their head to be like, "Oh, hey man, you should check like my friend out or whatever." It's just like
Yeah.
it's not even going to be a thought process. So that's like there's so many layers that you have to climb and break through, before you can actually reach somebody, and it's actually insane, insanely difficult, man. It's insanely difficult.
Is there something that you feel like you haven't done in your career that you're like, man, like I really want to do this, but I just need some time or something like anything that you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do like a few live shows. I mean,
Like
regardless
metal
of.
show?
I've done, it's crazy. I did one at Root Deep Studios in New York when I went. The first time I went, it's kind of crazy, man. And I was so nervous. Add more to the nerves, dude, because I was just like, okay, I was already self conscious, because I'm just starting out. And then I go to the studio and I'm around all these other artists, and like we're really throwing, like, it was inside of the studios and there was a bunch of people there. I mean, there had been like 30 or 40 people there. It was crazy.
Oh, dang.
And to me that was crazy, from somebody who's never performed in front of somebody. And then I get there and they're like, "Hey, you're gonna go up first." And I'm like, "Oh." And I was just like, "No, dude." I was like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Man, like let me get a few drinks in, dude." So like I'm freaking out. And I remember going in the back, dude, and I just like started like chugging a bunch of like Jameson, and I was just like, because I was so nervous, dude. And by this time I get up on there and like I was pretty hammered, dude. And I mean I did good. Like I did everything. Like there was no back, there was just like the backing track. There was no vocals or anything. It was literally just me. So um, I had to memorize a bunch of songs. I think I did like three or four. And it was cool, man. I really enjoyed it and I had a good time. And I remember just having so much fun afterwards, because once the other artists and stuff started performing too, you know, it was just cool. I was just like, oh, okay, these guys look the same way that I did when I was performing my music. They're just doing theirs. Um, so it was fun, man, and that's something that I want to revisit. I want to revisit that and do like a show. And it doesn't have to be something crazy big or anything, but I'd like to do a show with like some people. Um, and that kind of brings me back to like this area is that it's hard to find somewhere in this area where you can do like a hip hop like kind of show. Um, but I'd be willing to travel like to go and do something like that.
Well, you're always welcome in Memphis. Like I know people who a lot of promoters, a lot of people who put on events, and I'm actually in the works of getting affiliated with somebody so that Damage Media Group and this other person will have like our collective, and so we will be helping them put on their shows, and it's going to be great because they've already done a couple with great turnout. So yeah, you can come down. You'll be like a featured artist for sure.
Yeah, that'd be great, man. Yeah, just keep me updated on that because I'll definitely drive up.
Yeah, we'll have signs. The girls putting up the signs.
Hey, son. That's awesome. Yeah, man, I'm excited. Especially like I said, I'm going to New York in July, so it's gonna be fun, man. I know they got a new studio up. I think they got like two separate studios now. So we'll definitely be able to get some good reps in. You don't have to tell me now, but definitely text me and let me know what's going on with your flights and stuff like that if you've figured everything out or whatever. And yeah, that'll be good, man. I'm so excited for that. I like checked today and it said like it's 19 days away for me. Like, and I'm like, oh yes, dude, I'm so excited.
So yeah, let's wrap this up. Is there
Yeah.
anything? Well, first of all, just go ahead and just tell everybody like your how they can contact you or how they can see all your music and stuff like that, and so everybody can run up them streams for you.
Yeah, for sure. So you can catch me on IG. My IG handles at KSON Official. My email, you can hit me on my email. It's ksonofficial777 at gmail.com. So if you have beats or like do a song or whatever, definitely send that to my Gmail. And we can definitely work. My Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff is KSON. That's capital K dash capital S lowercase O-N. So that's how you can reach me and listen to my music.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man, for doing this. I was really happy to have you on,
Yeah,
and
my pleasure, dude. I appreciate you having me.
awesome. All right. Well, thank you for everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.